Hey YouTube Home Server Show. This is episode number 281. Thank you for tuning in. This is the video portion of the audio podcast. So I have Mr. Jim Collison here.
Yo.
He is right here, and we'll have Dwayne Robinson right here coming up. He went to, I think he went to get a drink.
All right, and one last question before you do it, and that is, where
you're
do
live
I get?
You're live on YouTube, so just everybody, this is Dwayne. So,
Oh,
what do you
okay.
need? Before we hit it?
Just is it the main page for the get the chat
Oh,
on your page?
just live podcast.
HomeServerShow.com/live.
Okay.
Live podcast. Yep. Azure on Home Server Show 281. So if YouTubers, if you found this is not a 3-minute review of Azure. This is a conversation for an audio podcast. So head out to homeservershow.com. You can find the audio broadcast of this as a podcast form. You can load that into your podcast.
It's really bad that we have to preface these videos with.
You know, I'm having better luck if I preface the video.
No, I got you. I get it too. I'm gonna get right to the point.
Instead of everything blowing up on me.
Yeah, I got you. It's good. Good call.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah, good here.
Where's my Synology? All right, here we go. This is the Home Server Show podcast, episode number 281, recorded on April the 22nd, 2015. Welcome back to the Home Server Show podcast. I'm your host, David McCabe. Hey guys, I am here with Mr. Jim Collison. Hey Jim.
Greetings, Dave.
And also Dwayne Robinson. Welcome back, Dwayne.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me back.
You betcha. Hey, this is Home Server Show. You can follow the show on Twitter at Home Server Show. You can follow Mr. Jim Collison. He is at JCOLLISON. And Dwayne, you are Dwayne76, right?
Yeah, at Dwayne76.
All right. So all those Twitter addresses for all the good times that you can possibly imagine. Hey, this podcast is a member of the Geeks Network. Go out to thegeeksnetwork.com for more quality podcasts like this one. And we just added a couple. You definitely want to go out there. I know you hear it a lot, but you want to go out there and check those new podcasts out. Also, we are sponsored. This episode is sponsored by Synology. Synology Beyond Cloud. Go beyond conventional storage. Play, collaborate, and achieve more. That's Synology. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when the time comes. All right, so tonight we're going to tackle Azure. Now, I've got a couple of guys here that know Azure much better than I do, and I am going to probably ask them a whole bunch of dumb questions. So now, before we get started, I want to do a little bit of follow-up. Jim, I got a lot of positive feedback last week on the Otixo episode.
Oh, good.
But as soon as we hung up the podcast last week, I started playing around with Otixo, and I kind of got stuck. So I thought I could really just grab a big folder from like Amazon Cloud or my copy.com cloud and just drag and drop that thing over to OneDrive. And for the most part, it did work, but I had a lot of timeout errors. I didn't get the full copy done, and right now I sit here in wonder, and I don't know if I got the complete copy finished. So that kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, it kind of does lack a little bit of the controls you'd get if you were doing that locally, on a Windows box. And you just don't. I did too. I moved some files around. You just don't get that feeling. They probably need to think about adding some of those controls in to give you a better feeling, like everything got there. That kind of deal. So
yeah. Maybe I should try it with the app. I don't know. Maybe the app is a little better in Windows 8. Maybe I'll try that.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you guys out there listening, go back and listen to last week's episode. I think it's still good, Jim. I think it's good till the end of the month. It's a 99-cent deal for Otixo, you can get Otixo for 99 cents for 3 months, and then it's going to start billing at $4.99. And you can do a bunch of cloud-to-cloud work in that. Also, I think the only other thing that I saw on the news was Silicon Dust, the guys that make the HD Home Run boxes. They're running a Kickstarter, and they're trying to gather up funds for a DVR. Did you see that, Jim?
Oh, I didn't. I need to look. That would be awesome.
I know you use
Yeah.
HD Home Runs. Dwayne, are you on the HD Home Run?
Yeah, I've got 2 of the primes in mine.
Right.
I did see what you're talking about. Rob Dentler and I were discussing this earlier today.
Yeah, so I don't, 2 years ago, I would have just basically fallen over myself and said, how do I sign me up? How do I get on board? And today I'm just like, meh. I mean, I have a Tableau behind me, and the thing works beautifully. And I can get my Tableau interface from my Roku. I can get it from Plex. It's pretty cool. I can get it in any browser I want, on my network or off. I watched a NASCAR race in the back of a van driving to Kentucky last year, straight from the Tableau.
Yeah, I still use Media Center, and I'm not having any issue with being able to take that content and doing something like MCE Buddy and then making the content work inside of Plex. So, I mean, I'm right there with you. If you've got a recording solution, I'm not really running into that problem either, Dave.
Yeah. Tim, do you see, is this going to be your panacea? I know you were trying to jump ship.
I mean, I'll watch for it. I mean, I think it would be with Media Center, kind of stuck in Windows 7. Now, there's ways to get it to Windows 8 and maybe Windows 10, but it's one of those things I want to watch for just as we progress. It was encouraging to see some DVR or some at least tuner support coming out for Xbox One, and if we would see some DVR functionality come right behind it, that would push me over the edge to get an Xbox One. So basically Media Center and the Xbox One, I'm in. I would buy that for the living room. My wife would switch over to that, and I just upgraded my antenna this week, and just everything came in. It was just an awesome upgrade. So now I'm kind of excited about it. I'm like, okay, all the channels are working. This would be great. But for now, I'm a Media Center guy, and it's working. I need to try Tableau. I need to do that, Dave. I need to go just buy one of those. And you've been talking about it, and you love it. I don't understand why you do. I need to get one.
Okay, well, a year and a half ago, maybe, I reviewed Tableau and Channel Master. And Channel Master is the kind of device that sits at the TV. And you have to have a piece of coax running right to your TV to your antenna, which is wherever. And in my house, that's about 1,000,000 miles from my TV. I like the fact that the Tableau can sit anywhere on your network. Anywhere. It does not have to be right at your TV. And so I have it sitting back here just for aesthetics, and I can see it, and I like to see it. And it's about 6 feet from my antenna. Just straight out this wall, there's an antenna pointing right to downtown. And I don't have to do any kind of boosting, any kind of signal loss in between, and it really works great. Honestly, the HD home runs are behind this TV as well. So I have Media Center jumps on the HD home runs, and then I have Tableau kind of as a backup. So it's like an extended review. It's like a review gone mad.
That you never returned.
No, I paid for it.
Oh, okay. Which one did you get?
I got a 2-channel Tableau. I paid for it because they had I don't think it was a Kickstarter, but it was a some type of like a pre-order process, and I got in as soon as I can. I was like, this really sounds like I'm gonna like this, so I jumped on it.
So $197 right now on Amazon. Would that sound right?
I think so.
For the 2-tuner?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they're running deals right now too, so you really have to kind of watch their Twitter feed.
They have a
Go
4-tuner as
back.
well for $299.
Yeah, and check. I think that's cheaper if you look at their Twitter feed.
Yeah, I don't really want to give up Windows Media Center. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm going to probably run that. I've got it running in both back there and here. I don't want to give up on it. So, but I am watching for, I'm running a PC, and there's other ways to do it, but to get it done. But
Well, Jim, we got two things coming up that I think are pretty interesting. One is that announcement of that tuner, right? And I can't remember on Windows Weekly if Paul Thurrott said that he had confirmation that they were going to add recording in a future update. And then the other side of it is we've got build coming, right? So with build coming, when applications being universal apps starting to come to the Xbox One, you start looking at that and going, it's not going to be long before some third-party developer writes something, right?
Yeah.
And so if there's a third-party developer listening, you got a huge market opportunity. I'll buy.
Yeah. Well, for now it's working well. I mean, I'm in a pretty good. I've got Windows 7 boxes doing it. It's working fine. So.
Yeah. No, Media Center does. It works well. It's burned in, and you need Wi-Fi acceptance factor on whatever you're using, and with Tableau it's there. That's another one. If both my HDHRs just died, or my Media Center PC my HTPC died, I have Tableau. It's sitting right there. Everything was recorded. I have a little 500 gig Western Digital drive that doesn't require power. It just pops into the back of Tableau via USB, and I just record like crazy. I told it, I made the mistake. I said record Price is Right, and I recorded all of them, and I looked back there like 6 months later, and there's like 60 of them. I was like, whoa, got some Price is Right going on. So it's great. So I'll put a link in the show notes for Tableau. It's a good little device.
You shouldn't share that you love Price is Right, Dave.
Hey, I like Price is Right.
He's got a thing for Drew.
Yeah. I like the pricing games. Let's just be honest.
Yes, he knows what a jar of jelly costs to the cent.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to get into some Azure. Once again, your host, Dave McCabe here. I've got Mr. Jim Collison, Mr. Dwayne Robinson, and this episode sponsored by Synology, and more importantly, sponsored by Beyond Cloud. Now, I happen to have a Beyond Cloud here, and this is a two-bay Beyond Cloud. I put it back together, Jim. I had to see what was on the inside of this thing, so I hope Synology's not listening. I tore it apart and took it for a little spin, checking out all the boards and stuff. But these things come pre-configured with Seagate NAS class drives. Now, NAS class drives are not your normal drives that you buy at the store, and these things are made for 24/7 operation. Now, the cool thing about Beyond Cloud is it's more affordable combined with the drives inside of it, and that usually doesn't happen. Usually you buy the NAS and it's blank, and then you buy drives to go in it, or you're looking at a competitor NAS and it's got a couple of drives in it, but the prices are astronomical. Beyond Cloud has pushed the prices down. You can find these things at Newegg. You can find them at Amazon.com. The biggest thing that you'll want to do is go to homeservershow.com. There's an ad at the very top, and it'll take you straight to Beyond Cloud. If you're listening to this post sponsorship from Synology, just go to Synology.com. You'll find Beyond Cloud there. Now, this comes in a 1-bay with a 2 terabyte drive. It also comes in a 1-bay with a 3 terabyte drive, and if you got this one, it's a 2-bay with 3 terabyte drives. So you got 2 3 terabyte drives, and it comes pre-mirrored. Now, the cool thing about Beyond Cloud is, you guys know, Synology NAS has a lot of power. It comes very powerful NAS. It's all in there, but they've worked it in a manner where it comes up, it's ready to go. Right when you plug the thing in, it's ready to go. It's all configured for you. There's a bunch of videos that help you go through it, and Synology's done a real good job putting this together for maybe not quite your IT guy. You can recommend this for your mom, your parents, your family, and not get in trouble. So Synology Beyond Cloud, it's beyond conventional storage. You can be able to play, collaborate, and achieve more with Beyond Cloud. And I thank Synology very much for sponsoring Home Server Show. And they sponsored quite a bit of Home Server Show in the past. Meetups, quite a few meetups. They've given us giveaway devices and stuff. So we're real happy with Synology and
Super
their
generous.
NAS.
They are.
Super NAS product.
Yep.
Look, I got 2 of them myself. Dave, that thing, it looks like you can get into Synology with a drive for $179.99 on Amazon right now. That's a deal and a half.
That is awesome. We'll have to put that link in the show notes too, so people can find that. That is cool. And the other thing is if you're running a server, this is how people get into it. This is how I get you. So beware. I'm about to get you. That thing is $179, and we'll run. You pay attention to my Twitter feed, and you'll see deals every once in a while. Or you go into the forums, you'll see deals. And guys that are running full-blown Server 2012, they'll buy one of these just to play around, to see what it's all about, to connect it to Azure, because it will, to connect it to OneDrive, to connect it to Dropbox, Amazon S3 services. It does a lot of stuff, and they'll get hooked. They generally get hooked on it and end up buying a 5-bay or an 8-bay, all kinds of cool stuff. So.
Or one for their RV.
Yeah, one for your RV. Hey, that's going to be in a future episode. We're going to be talking about some Synology on the road with Dwayne Robinson.
Oh, Lord.
All right, well, as I said, I alluded to, this thing will talk to Azure, and that's going to be our topic tonight. So Azure, a Microsoft product that seems to be, it's kind of like a cool kid product because a lot of folks use it. And if you're not really sure about what this thing is, I need to ask you guys, I mean, how would you define if someone says, hey, what's Azure? Because I heard developers talking about it, and then I heard this other guy talking about it running a website, and I heard this other guy talking about it as storage.
Yes.
Seems to be all over the place.
So the best way to describe that is just to understand this. You'll hear this thing when you start talking about cloud. You hear like this SaaS and PaaS and IaaS, and all it is software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. For this crowd, it's probably infrastructure as a service is going to be the more interesting because that's the one where it's like a virtual machine that you're just taking a virtual machine or like a network or something and creating it in someone else's data center in a virtual space. Where like platform as a service is this concept, and both of these are Azure from Microsoft. It'll be like, oh, I want a SQL database, right? And I don't want to worry about the operating system. I just want a SQL database. Or another one's like machine learning's been kind of a hot topic at Microsoft lately with customers. But those are just ideas of things. I think Jim, didn't you say that you were familiar with like Azure websites or Azure web apps is what it's now called? Because that's another platform as a service type of thing.
Yeah, no, that's we host, and I host WordPress sites on it. It's one of those things I actually recommend for folks who are just starting. They're like, hey, I want to do a blog or I want to do a website, and they start looking at GoDaddy or they start looking at whatever, and I'm like, hey, look, before you get crazy, just sign up at Azure. You get a free account. You can set up a free website. In fact, you can set up to 10 of those free websites on Azure and get 10 WordPress instances out there that you can you start your blog with. And so I think it's the best way to get into Azure for sure.
Well, and the cool thing is Jim, the other thing that you can do that's free like that is if you've got an Active Directory at home. I know some people do that, right? You can even sync up your Active Directory to Azure AD for free, and that's how you authenticate to the thing. So if you're trying to learn some Azure or you're just wanting to kind of play around, that's a great example of a place where you can do something for free in it.
So it sounds like we're telling everybody to go out to azure.microsoft.com and just kind of check it out. Maybe you could just go ahead and sign up. Now, I don't want people to go off the deep end, so maybe they should kind of know, okay, we want to start a website or a blog. Now, you talked about software as a service. Office 365
Yep.
Dynamics, all that kind of stuff. How does that play into maybe the home user and maybe even the small guy, small business guy?
Yeah, so if you look at Office 365, which is a great example of software as a service, it's funny because if you look at Microsoft's branding, for example, OneDrive is an example. That is a brand, right? And so if you see it branded like that, it's pretty much going to be software as a service. I mean, even if you go into corporate solutions like Dynamics CRM Online, that's a software as a service thing. So when you talk about, well, the individual type of person, I mean, everyone knows kind of what OneDrive can do for you and how that can play in. And then Office 365 Home is a great solution for you to be able to get, cloud storage for your family, things of that nature. But if you kind of come out of that stuff, Dave, I know a lot of people with small businesses or whatever, they just want a mailbox, right? Or and they go, I want a real mailbox. I want the power of Exchange or something like that. And if you start looking at it, you can get like a single mailbox for an Exchange mailbox on your .com through Office 365, but it's not the home premium type, right? So that's one of the things that you'll see, even like Link, right? You want to be able to chat with Link against Skype, but you want to use Link, which is being rebranded. I think it was just recently rebranded to Skype for Business. So those are just good examples of things, and you don't have to be huge, right? I mean, I think some of the Office 365 high-end, like the business versions are like $4 or $5 a month per account. Jim, have you been working with anybody that's been using something like that?
Not on the individual basis, no. But I think you're right. I think it's right at 5.
Yeah. So it's a good solution, especially like if you've got a little small business, you're doing some consulting, things like that. I know a lot of guys do stuff on the side. It's a good way to learn, if nothing more. For $5 a month, you see what a corporation's going to run, and it gets you some experience, and you learn, and you can fiddle around and have fun, right? Because those mailboxes are unlimited in size, so it's kind of a cool concept.
Yeah, I could stand to have my email figured out. I wish I had started different way back in the day, but I didn't. So my OneDrive.
I wish I could figure out your email, Dave.
My email and my OneDrive are all ganked up. So platform as a service, we're talking about SQL, and you said machine learning, and that's way over my head.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. If you want to get into some crazy stuff, the cool thing is you can go out. Most of these things inside of Azure have some sort of trial. So if you're trying just to learn something, feel free to go out there and take a 30-day trial and just play with it. You'll probably be pretty amazed. I think another platform as a service solution that we were talking about, Jim, ahead of this was the mobile application one. That one has been pretty cool, and you get like 10 free apps. And so you want to have like push notifications to a mobile app, you can go get that from them. So it's a pretty cool thing. I know not everyone has MSDN, but I mean, if you do, that's $150 a month, guys. You should just be eating that stuff up.
Yeah, and it's hard. I've found it hard to spend that. I mean, I could if I wanted to, but I've found it hard. I host a website. I use a custom domain, which costs a little bit per month. I've upped the CPU, so it gets a little faster than, and I still spend like $3 or $4 a month, and then I run the VMs. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but I find it hard. You got to work hard to spend, and you can crank things up, but if you're just under normal use, it's hard to spend a bunch of money out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's do that. Let's crank it down, because we do. Folks come to us all the time and they say, "Hey, Dave, Jim, we don't have MSDN. We're not MVP. We're not connected to a big business that has an account." So let's talk about maybe how we can get some of our listeners hooked into Azure and what they could do with it, and maybe how much it's going to cost them. Maybe we can start with your website, Jim.
Yeah, well, so I mentioned it earlier. Again, you can jump on it for free. You're going to get your site .azure websites.net. Azure. You can change that to get a custom a hosted domain in there. That's really the cost. You need to upgrade to the next level up to do that. Again, $3 or $4 a month to get that done. As you begin to throw cores at it, it gets more and more expensive. But for me, that works just fine. I don't need any more than that. I'm not storing MP3s, or we'll talk about storage here in a little bit. But from a website perspective, very, very easy. And then actually, and we'll put in the show notes too, there's a pricing calculator you can go out to, which really, if you just kind of want to say, hey, what's this thing gonna cost me? So on the share, I could jump out there on the shared site or on the shared plan, grab one instance, and it's showing me $9.68 cents a month. Or I can flip over to the basic, do a 1-core with almost 2 gig of RAM on that. Click that up a little bit, and it'll tell me, in this particular case, this is a high end on the basic side, $50 a month. So I could, if I wanted to, get real equipment out there doing real stuff with some real requirements, yeah, I can spend. But you're going to pay if this is a real server, right? So you're throwing $50 at something that you would probably throw thousands of dollars at if you were going to set this up with hardware in your ecosystem. So good to go out there. I think the pricing calculator, we could go around and round about the prices on this. The pricing calculator is a good one to go out to. It's very, very clear on what they offer and give you really quick pricing on a monthly basis. Dwayne?
Yeah, matter of fact, whenever you're provisioning a server, it'll tell you what the estimated monthly cost is. And just to give you an idea, I'm looking at an A0 Basic right here, and keep in mind, guys, this is including Windows Server 2012 R2 Data Center for a month for $13.39. I mean, it is affordable. One thing I would forewarn you is this crowd's probably not going to be interested in standard. A lot of people ask the question, what's the difference between standard and basic? And I'm going to give you a little Azure 101 here. The only difference, if you go into this new portal, which is portal.azure.com instead of the manage.azure, which was the old portal, you'll see now that they actually articulate what the difference is. And it's really just that the I/O speed on the disk are 300 IOPS versus 500. And then the other thing is you can't load balance or auto scale up. But for people who are just trying to do something with a home or kind of learn or set up a single website or something of that nature, you don't need that. I mean, this is faster than GoDaddy's ever going to be for you.
So I probably don't need 16 cores, 112 gigs of RAM, and an 800 gig SSD.
Oh yeah, and just to give you an idea, you should stand up an A9 standard server there, Dave, at $3,325.68 a month. That would be awesome for you. But it'd be 16 cores and 112 gigs of RAM.
Well, but Dwayne, to go back to that basic, a basic B1, right? So 1 core and about 2 gig of RAM, 10 gig of storage included in that, and unlimited websites and domains. It includes built-in network load balancing support. So $50 a month gets you pretty. I mean, if you're going to do this, $50 a month, you're in. You've got a machine that'll run pretty well for you. For most people on the basic, and the standard's $25 more. So that standard is
when you went to the pricing catalog, the pricing tool, it has app service, virtual machine, mobile, cloud, data management, and full calculator. So where were you?
I'm in the app service. Yeah, I'm in the app service section under the basic tab. B1, which is a 1 core, 1.75 gig RAM, 10 gig of storage.
There's a free tab in there as well.
There is a free tab in there, and you get 10 of those. 10 of those apps, they're shared.
Mm-hmm.
You get 10 of those app services in a shared environment for free. So that's the best way to start, right? Don't go in and buy something. Set up an account, pop over here. The developers that I talk to, the .NET guys, love these free app services. The guys that are developing mobile apps love this. So I'm not a developer, so I don't know. I can't talk to it why. Dwayne, maybe you can talk a little bit more, but they just say nothing but good stuff about these app services.
Well, it's I have a GoDaddy maxed out account, right? Where I have unlimited storage and everything, and the performance on that is not even in the ballpark of what you're getting at Azure. So there's a lot of people who go, oh, well, gee, I have this issue or that. Well, a lot of people are building websites and doing things, and they'll go get their .com or whatever and do a redirection to be able to get the speed out of it. So even at these free websites, you can go put content up there and be able to help drive that and mask your URL and just get value out of it, right? And just really drive high performance. So I think that's one thing that I've heard a lot of feedback on, is that it's just not comparable to like a GoDaddy VM, right? These things have really high performance when you're dealing with them. So.
And Dave, these app services, like when we think about a WordPress site, and I'm going in there, I'm going to set one of these up. Literally, when you're setting it up in Azure, you go to the portal, you say, I want a new site, I want to pull it from the gallery. You go to the bottom, find WordPress, you click on it. It's going to open a dialog box that's going to give you 2 pages, 2 small boxes of options. You fill those things in the way you want. You click go, and in 3 minutes, you have a fully configured, installed WordPress site up and running that's going to throw you to the admin page. Mm-hmm. You jump in there, do the initial WordPress stuff, and you're in. And so it takes the complexity out of installing WordPress. It's all there. It's all together. It's all in one. It just and that's that way. There's, I don't know, Dwayne. There's about 30 other options when we think about the different Joomla, and there's some CRM stuff, and there's some wiki stuff. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there that you can put on there.
Yeah, matter of fact, I was just looking at the gallery here in the portal, and right now there's over 3,000 different configurations that it will just install. I mean, if you wanted an IBM WebSphere server or a CentOS or you boot Oracle new server, you can literally just push a button. You don't need to know how to install it. It will completely configure it for you and just drop it in. And yeah, I think some of them, like if you configure a SharePoint farm, I've seen that take like 30 minutes, but that's like 8 servers and it does everything. And anybody who's ever set that up, heaven help you. So.
But on those, especially on the WordPress side, super simple and super easy to use.
I've even went, Jim, like different things, like just went in and installed some sort of PHP application that I had for free into one. So it doesn't have to be like a pre-built thing either. You can install your own PHP app into it. It'll support it completely. Right. So
yeah, you can do blank ones. You could do blank HTML5 sites that are they're just blank. It sets up the framework, and then you can log into them and do what you want to do. Dave, on the flip side of that, we talked about app services, but mobile services are out there available as well. So you can run up to 10, and this is beyond on the app side, 10 mobile services. They give you 10 meg of a SQL database for free, and I think they give you up to 500,000 API calls to those mobile services.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and so again, you can jump in there and get it done for free. You add to them. The beauty of these is if you want to start them on the free plan and then you decide, oh, hey, I kind of like this and I want to move, it's literally going into the control panel and saying, well, and I do this when we talk about virtual machines. I do this all the time, where I'm like, I'm going to do some stuff. I'm gonna pump that up to a 4 processor, and then I'm going to reboot it, and then I'm going to use it, and then when I'm done, I'm going to scale it back down to a 0, and then I'm going to turn it off, right? And I'm paying only for what I use, which is really, really useful, especially for the stuff we're testing.
Yeah, and Jim, I'm looking at the components here that make up that whole Azure mobile services, and if you're trying to get into app development and you don't want to write a whole engine to keep data in sync for offline or something like that, this thing's got it built in. I mean, you just don't have to write a lot. So if you're looking for an easy way to do it, I'd say go there. There's even some training videos out on the site to help you out if you're kind of getting started. But yeah, it's just great. Great deals can be had here, and you don't have to spend money even if you don't have an MSDN account. If you do have an MSDN, you really want to get out there and look and spend that $150 a month.
Yeah, it looks like I need to be using my MSDN account money, and I have.
Well, for us, I think on MSDN the payoff is on the virtual machine side. This is This is where I think it gets super interesting, and I think for this audience, where you would use it the most. Now, this also is the most costly in some. I mean, you can really spin some stuff up and throw some cores at it and spend some money. So you want to be careful on this. And this is not necessarily on the free side. Dwayne alluded to it earlier, though. You can get in for as little as $14 a month on a virtual machine. So you can spin up server, you can spin up Windows 7, you can spin up Windows 8. They have the current ISOs for Windows 10 that are there, and so I've done this. I've loaded as they've been refreshing Windows 10. I always keep a Windows 10 instance on Azure for the podcast to talk about. It's the best place to keep it. I'm thinking about keeping less and less hardware around here, and really for the testing stuff, taking it to Azure. And when you shut it off, you don't pay for it. I mean, turn it on. You pay as you use. When you're done, shut it off. And it's just a great way. You can spin a couple of those up and get some good testing in it. Get used to the experience. You can't do touch, that's not going to work and that, but you can get those instances up. So that's what I use the most of, Dwayne. I've brought up a Windows Server 2012 R2 instance several times there, and have used that as for stuff for the show here that we've talked about when we've talked about VM. Using VMs that way. It's been great.
Yeah, matter of fact, Jim, I think one of the key things on that particular topic is so understand a couple of things about Azure. You're paying by the hour for the rent of it, and that includes the license and everything, right? So the other thing to keep in mind is that what you also have the ability to do is shut it off and not pay for the compute. Now the storage, there's a lot of people who get caught up on this, and so when you stand up a VM, like the C drive on an Azure virtual machine is going to come up as 127 gig. It is not a dynamic expanding disk, but let me give you some info here. And Jim, I don't know if you knew this, but you don't pay for 127 gig, even though that's what's provisioned. Until you write to the disk header, it doesn't count against it. So you just pay for what you've used in that. And to give you an idea, like an Active Directory domain controller that I have up there, I pay about $1.40 a month for the storage for that thing to exist. And now if I shut it down, it's going to cost me I could make it come down really low, but we'll talk a little about network connectivity and how you can connect this to your home network and things of that nature in a second. But to give you an idea of me being able to connect a Active Directory domain controller that is in sync with the one at my house, connected directly with Azure, because you have to pay for the network as well, I'm paying roughly $20 to $22 a month. And that's all up. And again, majority of that is actually the VM. So a lot of people get caught around the wheel on what the network's going to cost you and what the storage is going to cost you, and these are really pennies that you're talking about here.
I threw a link earlier, and Dave will include it in the show notes. But right now, if you start a trial account, you get a $200 credit. So for 30 days, you could try a bunch of different stuff, measure that. They have really good stats that come out that tell you what you're using and how much it costs. And I mean, they give you all that in very granular detail. And decide for yourself. I mean, it's just one of those things you can try with. Use their money. Put it on them. Let them spend their money. Right? Spend Dwayne's stock money.
Easy.
$20. That's nice. That's a good way to get started. So, just to kind of recap before we get too far down, we want to talk it back down to maybe the listeners of this show who don't have an MSDN account. So, speak to me that way. I can get started. I can obviously run a virtual machine, right? Being careful with my free $200, or spinning up maybe a Windows 10 to check it out. The other thing I was thinking is if you ran a VPN, a virtual machine, you just use like a remote desktop to it, isn't that right?
Yeah, no, right on. It's the same protocol. So you're going to remote desktop, and on the Surface, this is dynamite.
Could I get some touch via this thing?
You could, yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's dynamite. I mean, it works. The Surface does well in this area of just bringing up, go full screen on it, and it's like you feel like you're running it locally. in a lot of ways. And again, you're not, and so there's a little latency as you're bringing. It depends on your connection and some of those kinds of things. But if you're running a really intense process, you could be running that on the server as opposed to running it on your Surface, and be able to offload some of that action and get it off locally, which I like. And again, as Dwayne says, you're not paying for it unless you're using it. So log into the portal, start it, give it a few minutes to get going, hit the remote desktop connection, and you're in. When you're done, come back, shut it down.
I'm going to freak you out here, Jim.
All right.
Imagine taking one of these machines, loading it up with Visual Studio, okay, so that you can develop on it and you can do your compiling or whatever you want to do, or just any type of workload, right? You take this and you go in and you fire it up. You go to the website, fire it up, connect to it, do what you need to, shut it down, and you're out, right? You could connect it up with OneDrive. You can do all this stuff, right? You could have a full high-power machine. So let's go into the world of somebody who has a Surface 3 that needs to run Visual Studio. You don't want to run all that crap on your machine and you don't want to carry around that horsepower. You can go log in, fire it up for the few hours you need it, and turn it back off.
Right.
And we're talking, it's not going to cost you much money, Dave, if you're going and you're good about that. Now, the other thing is there's something called Azure Automation that just came out. You hear about this, Jim?
No, I haven't.
So you can go in and create a run book, Dave, where you say, hey, every night, make sure this thing's shut down. So if you're worried that it's going to cause you problems, you can actually run something to say, shove this thing down. You can even go as far as to say, oh, I want it to run during these hours as a really high-powered machine, and then change it down to a really low-powered machine. So all that type of stuff, and the elasticity is what we call it at Microsoft, of the cloud. You start applying that for your home use or your personal use, and you can really start doing things that you couldn't normally do on lightweight devices. This is a great way if you need to run Visio on a Surface 2 or a Surface RT type of box. That's a great way to get it done. That's how I used to do it.
That is a good idea, because I mean, the Surface 3 has that Atom processor. It doesn't have that Surface Pro 3 big old processor, so that's a pretty good idea. And I assume you were talking about this Surface 3, right? This one right here.
The new one, yes.
The new one.
Jim, if you're close enough, just hit him over the head with that.
I know. Do you love the way he flaunts that? But I think that's the perfect use case for that in a lot of ways. Is that's a light portable machine that you can just take with you, and then when you're on the road and you need to log in, push over to a more powerful server, up it if you know you're going to need to do some things. You can, before you even start it, you can quickly go into the control panel, up the CPUs, and then start it, the cores, then start it, do your stuff. When you're done, shut it down. Dwayne, I think the idea of the scheduled turn it off, because I have forgotten to turn it off from time to time, and then you're like, you come back 3 or 4 days later and you're like, oh man, it's been running. I'm going to go in there and figure out how to set that up. At midnight, it just shuts it. It shuts those down for me if they are running. I noticed there's a new virtual machine pricing calculator as well.
I just clicked that, Jim. I was like, wow, look at this thing.
Yeah, I just put that in the chat, and what's cool about that is it builds it out. You can really add some factors to it. So you can choose the instance size. You can talk about how many cores you want, how much RAM you want to put in there, how much disk size. And it'll blow that out for you. It starts at the standard price. And again, remember that it's an estimated cost, so about $14 a month if you ran it full time at its lowest configuration.
Right.
So you could get, even if you left it on 24/7 in that configuration.
So the other thing, Jim, is that there's another thing that came out just recently called Azure Remote App. And if anyone's familiar with this idea of like terminal services or Citrix where you publish an application, Remote App is running a published application in the cloud, and you just RDP into it. So the idea is that you could run Visio, for example, and the only time you really are using it is when you're using it, right? So it's a great another alternative to look at. I haven't really evaluated which way would be better. If you got a lot of apps, I'd have to kind of play with it and see what the value is between the two. But I don't know if Visual Studio is the best thing for that particular scenario, but I definitely think there's a lot of different things for people to get out here and start playing with, and I believe Remote App even has a free 30-day trial on it. So those things, I've got a link in here in the show notes to Remote App, but if you're familiar with that concept, that's another great thing you might want to take a look at.
Okay, so we've mentioned show notes quite a bit, and I want to just kind of follow back up with you, especially if you're viewing via YouTube. If you have questions for us, we are live right now. This is April 22nd, 2015, 9:07 p.m. Eastern. But if you want to ask a question, because I saw a tweet just come by, you need to head over to homeservershow.com /live. We are live. There's a chat room over there. You can ask any kind of questions. You don't have to log in. No passwords required. Or if you're catching this after the live broadcast and you'd like to talk to these two guys about Azure and we want to compare some notes, there's forums at homeservershow.com. Click the forums link at the top and put your question there. We'll be sure to take a look at that. And lastly, the show notes are on this episode at homeservershow.com. Look for show number 281 and you will see all the links that these guys are talking about. And guys, I'm looking at trying this virtual machine. I'm clicking, I have an East Coast-based machine, Windows Basic Tier, and I don't know how to configure anything else, so I'm just leaving it as like maybe almost a gig of RAM, 20 gigs of space.
Yeah, Dave, on the where it says instance size down there,
Mm-hmm.
go all the way to the right and click that drop down.
Now,
and that'll give you a bunch of configurations for you.
okay, so if I wanted to crank up my cores, I could do that. Ooh, going from 0 to 1 significantly changes the price.
Yes, yeah. You go from $14 to $50, right? In that, or let me.
Right.
Yeah, you go from 14 to 50. Yeah, once you start adding in some of those dedicated services, yeah, it's going to get a little more expensive. I mean, you're getting dedicated cores
Sure.
To the box. Now, again, remember, you're renting it. So even at $50, if you're using this as a test machine, you can fire this thing up, use it, shut it down. It's really paid by the minute, Dwayne, right? You said by the hour, and I get why, but
yeah, hourly rate.
Yeah,
it's prorated. If I understand correctly, by the minute.
Yeah.
So I don't think. I think the key thing here is, Dave, there's a lot of people that go, well, I don't have access to Windows Server 2012 R2. Well, we just showed you. You could do it for a few dollars. You can go in, get into it, see what the console looks like, play with it for a few hours, shut it down, right?
Yeah,
and
you do now.
So
easily.
You do now. Yeah,
So
this is what. Oh, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Sorry, Jim. This just gives you a machine? It says type Windows. So I'm just able to use the Azure console and then go in there and pick an OS and just say, hey, drop Windows 7 on it.
Yeah. You could. So in this case, right, you go to the gallery and you're going to go to the virtual machine gallery and you're going to choose from about 40 different OSs that are out there. In this case, you're going to choose Windows 7. It's going to ask you a few questions. Questions everyone that listens to this show can answer. I can answer them. You can too. They're not difficult. You're going to set up a few things, name it basically, allocate some stuff to it, and then you're going to hit create, right? And it's going to go out and create this instance. I think Windows takes probably 10 minutes to set up. Maybe it churns for a while and does its thing. You'll see in the portal it's starting, and then when it's ready, it's going to say ready. And then you click connect, and it's gonna drop a remote desktop connection dedicated for that in your browser. If you're in Chrome, it's just gonna save it automatically. You're gonna click on that, and it's gonna start a remote desktop instance. That then will go to the desktop, right? And then it's like every other Windows experience you've ever had, right? There's a few prompts for the remote desktop that you can the first time click and say, don't show me these anymore. I don't want to see them, right? And then it's going to come to the Windows login, right? And you'd given it that login information when you were setting it up. That's some of those things that you fill in. You log in with your information, go full screen. You have no idea you're in the cloud. Okay. It looks just like you're on the desktop.
There's one thing, Dave, that may be a little confusing for people if they've never been in here before. If you're, and I assume, Dave, you're at the portal dot, so you're seeing the new portal, which
Right.
looks, it's much easier to use that one, guys. So please try to use that one if you can. There's this one thing that says resource group. If you don't know what a resource group is, it's nothing more than you can group your servers together for like management. So you can just take the default there, create each server in its own group. It doesn't really matter for you. It
Mhm.
it's just, if you don't know what that is, that's what it's there for. So like I could put a group of servers together and keep some people from being able to get access from one to the other. That's really all it is.
A little more technical. But Dwayne, same way, if you're setting up stuff and then you're like, oh, you mess it up, or you're like, I didn't like it, you just delete it.
Oh yeah.
You're like, just delete, and it goes away, right? It's gone. It's history. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Set up another one. I mean, clone them if you want to do that, right? If you
Let me
set
ask you
one up
a
and you want,
question.
yeah.
Um, I don't have an example here, but how do I, let's say, on a normal machine, I've got a USB stick. I can put a file to it. I mean, what if I have a file sitting here at my desktop and I want to get it to my virtual machine in order to do like testing? How do I accomplish that?
So in an RDP session, when you connect, just connect your local drives.
Okay.
As part of it. That's one way to do it. That's probably the easiest way. The other thing, Dave, we didn't really talk about, and I think is pretty cool, is the network options, right? Because the way that I have this set up at my house right now, right? And again, keep in mind, $20. That's what it's spending roughly right now. I have because I'm just trying to test out things, right? It's not a matter of anything other than that. I have what's called a site-to-site VPN connection. And so I have a little Hyper-V box sitting at my house that runs something on Windows Server called RRAS. And in the show notes, I've got step-by-step instructions that show you how to connect from your location at your house to connect it up with a small virtual machine that will route traffic between the two. So I can actually do like a network share connection directly to a virtual machine in there. I can ping it like it's on my home network at this point. And so, and you really, they've got where you can just install a VPN client that will connect a single machine to a site, but you can do that. You can do site to site, and then they even have an option for like if you deal with bigger things to do what's called express route, which is a private network connection called MPLS into the data center.
Mm-hmm.
But to give you an idea, the VPN connection between my house and when you set up what's called a gateway, it allows you to have up to 10 VPN connections, and it can do, in just the standard one, 100 megabits over that VPN connection, which is insane. I've got a 100 megabit connection. The only thing, it's actually my connection, my internet connection is the slow point
Right.
between the two. And again, that's like $20 a month, and I have an Active Directory domain controller up there and one here, and they are syncing between the two. And so that's pretty awesome if you think about being able to do something like that.
Now, do you keep that fired up all the time?
I keep it fired up all the time. It's about $22 a month.
Okay.
The other thing that came out, we were talking about storage, and there's like different types of storage. I think the ones that are more interesting to people here are going to be you'll hear it referred to as blob storage. Let's just think of it like a big blob of storage, right? You see that as a storage account, but they have this new thing they call file storage, and it's actually, I think it's in preview right now, and that is an SMB share. So you don't even have to have a machine. If you just want a file share, you could connect this thing up, connect a file share straight from it. You don't even need a server to do it, which is a pretty cool option.
So just pick storage, right?
Yeah. So like in it, I think you go under like new and then storage.
Data management on the old portal.
Yeah.
I got zapped back to the old portal somehow.
I actually prefer the old portal, to be honest. Yeah. I do. I don't know, and maybe that's just because that's what I learned on.
Yeah, that's what's
You know,
familiar right now.
yeah.
It's going
Just
away,
never.
Jim,
I know. I'll
to
eventually
the
migrate.
dark side.
I flip back and forth, to be honest with you. I like the reporting that comes on the new portal more than the old. The old portal is very functional. So when I need to do something to the VM or get it started or whatever, I find it easier on the old portal, mostly because that's what I know. When I want to get stats or data, it's really laid out like a dashboard. The new portal is, and so it's better to look at. It's got better. I mean, it has better um, data points on it than the old one does.
Well,
See,
and
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and I think one of the things we also talked about is so Synology, for example, you've got a Synology option now where you can actually use Azure Backup. And so if you want point in time recovery, that $200 we're talking about that you can go get, you could go run it and see what is it, the estimation of the cost in the first month on what that was. And so you could go set it up, back your stuff up, and then basically determine in that first month with the $200 credit, what's it going to cost you to do it there. I think that's another great option for people. It's not as cheap as Glacier. I don't think there's any competitive solution in Azure for Glacier yet. I know that's something coming though.
Yeah, if you go to the backup wizard in the Synology NAS, you can back up to S3, you can back up to Azure, and there is a Glacier option as well. But it's right here in front of me. Microsoft Azure Backup Destination, and you can choose that. I've never done that because I've never figured out the portal part of it. And actually, you guys started talking a little bit. Is that an Ubi? Who's talking?
I'm sorry, that is my Iris system giving me information.
Okay, that's your Iris. It sounds pretty much like an Ubi.
It does sound like an Ubi, but she only says like 3 things.
Okay. And I knew it wasn't an Echo because Jim and I just got Amazon Echoes, and he's going to talk about it on his show. So I knew it wasn't Alexa.
Oh no, and
Okay.
the only sad thing is every time because I told you I put on those new deadbolts, every time they lock and unlock it, it sets it from home mode and stuff like that. So it's my wife upstairs taking the dog out.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up here really quick, but I wanted to kind of throughout the whole conversation, Jim and Dwayne, I'm trying to think, okay, how does this apply to me? How can I use this? And I would like to try to use it like beyond a virtual machine. That's easy. I need to load up a Windows 10 virtual machine at least. Get something assigned, get a portal, get going, get familiar with this. But you know what I'm thinking? Sorry, my nose is itching. Allergies. You know what I'm thinking is maybe I should do some type of site-to-site MySQL synchronization from my VPS server on the internet that hosts all my forums and all my WordPress databases. Maybe I could like sync those somehow.
Yeah, you
to
probably
Azure.
could. Yeah, you have console access on the one that you have
Oh yeah.
running today. So
Oh
if you
yeah.
have console, you can just do the point to site VPN client and connect it right up. I mean, if you just got one machine and you want to connect it up so that they can talk privately, there's just a little client you install and it'll talk to everything inside of Azure
Hmm.
and the whole network.
I'm
So,
wondering if I couldn't use just Azure as the DB.
oh yeah, you could do that as well. Yeah, I know people that have done that, and you may even see some good performance gains in that.
That'd be front end. So you'd serve HTML and PHP on this side, and it would make database calls over the internet to Azure.
Yeah, I think what you're asking, Dave, is a good question, right? Let's net this out for what should people really take from this, and what should they go do, right?
Mhm.
Number one is if you don't have MSDN, you should go sign up for an account. It's free. You'll get $200 worth of credit. But before you do that, go look, right? Go look at what is offered so you don't waste your first month doing nothing, right? So what I would recommend you do is go look at these different links in our show notes, come back, do a couple of things. One is go stand you up an Azure website, right? Those won't cost you anything. You can keep them forever, right? Don't do the ones that cost you money. Just do the ones that are free. You get 10 each, right? If you're an app developer, go take advantage of the 10 free apps that you can build with the backend on with Azure on the mobile app side. And then beyond that, start taking a look during that $200 credit. Play with it. Go create some VMs, right? Use it as a great opportunity to go learn something that you don't know. Stand up a Ubuntu server, right, and play with it, right? You can get really kind of crazy with $200. Will go very far if you pay attention at the estimated cost in the portal. So, but don't waste it away. I will tell you, with $150, I'm looking right now. I have 13 days left on the account. I have $117.56 left, and I'm running a full time. I've got two boxes up there running full time, and on top of that, I've also got a dedicated VPN connection between site to site between my house and this. I mean, that's pretty impressive that I'm doing it for that price point. So,
you know what I'm also thinking? A Windows 7 box running old school version 1 Halo server.
The servers don't have great graphics cards there, Dave, but definitely.
That is, Dwayne, that is an area, I'd love to see them get better with GPU support. There is, in Amazon, you can buy now some pretty spectacular GPU support for that kind of stuff. And so I'm hoping we see more of that from the Azure team, just as we think about in that area, Dave, of game hosting, or in where you have applications that are GPU intensive.
Well, I think you should just go write Titanfall because it's back-end by Azure. So.
Just go do that. It's all taken care of over on that side. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know that there's a lot of, if you're really going to do those games, get an Xbox One and just play them in the right place, right?
And Dave needs to go try to look at the media services and see if he can maybe use the encoding capability to be able to maybe do something with the podcast. That'd be a good thing for you to play with, Dave.
You never know. That could be good. Hey, I'm thinking it also could be my answer of being in a single database, all of my forums together. I keep waiting on Envision PowerBoard to release their software, and because I want to kind of unify with single sign-on, and they're just pokey Joe about it.
Yeah. So there's a question here in the live chat here. Okay. Someone asked, did I mention MPLS earlier? The answer is yes. Matter of fact, MPLS is supported in two different ways, and it can go from anywhere from 10 megabits a second all the way to 10 gigabits connections through what we call ExpressRoute. So if you want, there in the show notes, there's a link to ExpressRoute, and that'll give you all the information you could possibly want about MPLS. It'll make you sick. Okay. So hopefully that'll help out that question in the chat room. And I would say your name, but I don't know if it's Iopta or Lupta.
Lopta.
There you go.
Neither.
Dwayne, one of the things I've been impressed with, and I haven't dug in every nook and cranny, but Azure's documentation is pretty good. I mean, in the stuff I've needed to read, the walk through the step by step on how to set stuff up when you have questions. I set up a R2 instance with Essentials role running. I did that on the campus at Microsoft the last time we were out there during the MVP Summit. I did it directly from documentation I got from Azure, from the Azure team. So I think the Azure team is doing a nice job. If you get lost, go back to the Azure documentation first before you do anything.
Yeah, definitely. And to give you guys, I think one of the good things is that when it comes to the Azure stuff, and I'm happy to, answer more questions or whatever, you guys feel free to ping me. Couple of things that, just to give you an idea of, I'm willing to help you guys on. And at the meetup, for example, Dave, I'm going to be there, and people feel free to ask me questions because I've actually went through the whole Azure certification of 534, which is the solution architect certification. When Azure was being launched in the infrastructure, so this VM stuff day, I actually was there, and the presentation that was done at Tech Ready, or at Tech Ed, I'm sorry, I was behind the stage with Satya Nadella and Mark Razinovich and everyone, and one of my customers was the first customer ever to touch that. So from that perspective, I've had a lot of exposure to it, so I'm happy to help this community in any way possible. So if there's questions and you want to go really into Nerdville, I can go there with you. If you want to talk about how to apply it for home and what does it mean to Media Center, let's talk about that. I'm definitely open to some cool ideas on this, and I'm seeing a lot of crazy uses for it that are really out of the box. So definitely let me know. And by the way, if you're also interested, I would tell you that if you follow Corey Sanders on YouTube, not on YouTube, but on Twitter, he's the guy who owns Azure IaaS from the product group. He's a great person to follow on Azure, and a good guy.
Hey guys, I think we're going to call that a podcast. Hey, a lot of good information. A lot of it may went whoop right over your head, but don't worry about it. We've got the show notes to help you out. We've also got HSS forums, so homeservershow.com/forums, or go to homeservershow.com, click the forums button, dig around in there. A lot of guys talk about all this crazy fun stuff, and then a lot of people just pose scenarios. Hey, has anyone tried this, or what if I tried that? And we're going to start doing that now with Azure. So this could probably be like show one of maybe a couple. Maybe we'll dig this back out once a quarter and get these two guys together and see what is going on. I know there's changes to this platform all the time, and we can report on those, and then I can check back with you and let you know how my Halo server is doing, or maybe my MySQL. I like to run a MySQL server.
It's probably a better use for it.
Yeah, probably.
Slightly better.
Yeah. So, Dwayne, thanks for coming on again. Appreciate it. We'll get you back on, and we'll talk some Synology.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about Iris at some point too.
Yeah, we gotta get some home automation going. We usually do that about once a quarter. We talk about home automation on Home Server Show, so we'll do that. Jim, thanks again.
Thanks, Dave. I've wanted to do this show for like 2 years, so thank you for finally getting to it, Dwayne. Thanks for coming on and talking about it, because I certainly you added a ton of value to what to the conversation with your experience. So thanks for jumping in the community and helping. It's been a passion of mine to just get people using it, and so thanks for supporting it.
I'm glad everyone is interested. And sorry if we go too deep on this one, but guys, this is something you should get in. It's actually really cool.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Thanks again, guys. Don't forget, this show sponsored by Synology and Beyond Cloud. Go beyond conventional storage. Play, collaborate, achieve more. Go to Synology.com for more information, and don't forget the Geeks Network, thegeeksnetwork.com, for more great podcasts like this one. See you out in the forums. Thanks, fellas. We're still on YouTube, so YouTubers, thanks for hanging in there. Oh, that was a good show.
No, it was good. There's a ton of good information.
Home Server Show is killing it lately. Home Server Show's had a good year, I think.
Yeah.
Good.
I tell you, I think even if you have a few people who are going to say that's a little deep, I think it's kind of a good thing. It gets people thinking. And Jim, if you're anything like me, you start with like this little inkling of a knowledge, and you get in there, and it's actually a little scary. It's like swimming in the deep end for a little bit, and then you get scared. But man, let me tell you, I'd rather be scared at that $200. Well, I got that $200 credit, you know.
Right. Well, and I get in, and what I need to do is I get in for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, and I mess some stuff up, and then I'm like, okay, I need a breather. So then I jump out, I go do something else, I think about it for a day, then I come back the next day and make another run at it, or try it again, or think through some solutions, or what if I do this and that, or talk to some folks about it. So it's one of those things I keep coming back to. But the website runs my running blog, my personal blog, that runs that full time. I have that up and running full time. Right resources. I love to go in and look at the stats and keep track of that stuff. The thing I've been looking at, or I was trying to price out earlier, was could I host my MP3 files? What would be the hosting costs to be a media storage server for me? Started looking down that road. At the time, it was way more expensive than going with like a MediaFire or a Libsyn or a but Dave, you mentioned I get an email from Azure monthly with new pricing, right? It's constantly changing, and it never goes up. It always goes down.
Always goes down.
Always goes down. It's yeah.
And I think you need to look at that Azure file storage thing. Since it's in preview, it might actually still be free.
Yeah, I looked. I don't think I have access to it yet, with my account.
Okay.
But I'll file.
You have to when something's in preview, you have to go in and say add it to my preview.
Okay.
Subscribe, and then you can get it. And I would tell you that I think that one is going to be really big for people because you're just wanting a file share.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that means you don't really, because that's platform as a service. The way the pricing tier goes is software as a service is the cheapest way to get something. Then platform as a service, and then infrastructure as a service. So, if you can get something in PaaS, you're going to want it over SaaS. I mean, over IaaS. Apologies.
Well, the option was, can I put my MP3 for the podcasts out there and have those, have people retrieve them from there, and would that be a cost-effective way to do it? Because I'm paying for bandwidth at that point, as opposed to storage. Now, it's both, because I'm going to have about 500 gig worth of podcast stuff now that I store out there. Cool. And so, but, it would be interesting to see. Christian does that for me today on his, all that stuff is stored on the server farm at Maple Grove Partners, and he does all that for me. But I was thinking at one point in time, what would it look like to use Azure as the back end for that?
Yeah, I wonder what the Azure. You could do that on an Azure website, though.
Yes. Yeah, it's the storage so then I would need to attach some additional storage to it.
Yep.
And add that into the server, and then really get an idea. The bandwidth is really what I'm going to pay for, and at the time, Azure was not competing. This was a year ago, maybe. Azure was not competing necessarily on bandwidth for that kind of stuff, but like I said, it's always changing, right? And so it's probably worth a second look, just because that's what we should do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm just kind of curious now. You got me wondering what that cost would be.
Yeah.
Because
I think I do 50. I probably do about 50 or 60 gig of traffic a month through my MP3 files.
Yeah, so 77 gig in a month is $8.64.
Oh, it's not. That's actually down.
And that's United States and Europe.
I think in the day, so a year ago, to compare and contrast, I think that was like $70, like a year ago.
Oh, okay. So we'll see what $70 will get you.
Yeah, and then when you can do this unlimited at Libsyn or Blueberry for $20, or Dave, is it 20, 40? What's the Libsyn plan for that?
You can start as low as 15.
Yeah, but most people, like for what I do, what you and I do, $20. So that was kind of the benchmark.
$70 is going to be is going to not get you much. It's only going to get you 592 gigabytes of downloads. And by the way, there's no cost for upload. Yeah, I don't know. Right. We didn't cover that, but
right. No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Anything you move up to it is free.
Yeah. So we just got to figure out a way to get Dave to stream to get video, dude. We got to figure out a way to get you video podcast.
That's the other thing. I was, instead of using YouTube, there are video services that you can in there somewhere. Somebody was telling me about that, and it was like that would be the media services, right?
Yeah, the media services is what that is.
And that was one of those I jumped in one day and I tried for an hour and then I was like, oh, I don't know enough. I do not know enough to do this. But
yeah, this one is live streaming and video on demand. Says encoding CDN abilities with it, and then it's saying here that you can deliver directly to Windows, Android, iOS PCs, tablets, smartphones, plus TV, game consoles, and more.
Yeah. No, I think it'll do it. I looked into it not too long ago. Dave, you got to go?
YouTubers, I got to cut you off.
Bye, YouTubers.
Bye, guys. See you in the forums.